We saw Aspinall.
Okay, are we ready here?
We're ready.
We'll open the meeting for October 21st for the Shasta Regional Transportation Agency. This is what we're going to refer to as the partial Zoom meeting. We actually have a quorum of board members in person, first time in a year. So there are a whole lot of instructions on how to connect, but if you haven't already figured out how to connect, you're probably not hearing us. But if you have any technical difficulties, I would ask you to call Amy Lindsay at 262-6190. So we'll start with item 1. Amy, would you do a roll call?
Good afternoon, board members and members of the public. We'll start with you, Chair Watkins.
Present.
Board Member Schrader.
Here.
Board Member Mazzano.
Here.
Board Member Browning.
Here.
Board Member Modi.
Here.
Board Member Rickert.
Here, and I really like Barron's shirt. Fuchsia looks good on him.
Today's Pink Day.
Is it?
It's Cancer Awareness Day.
That's magenta.
I'm sorry, and Board Member Commenti.
Here.
Just couldn't help myself.
Great, thank you, everybody.
You should have me.
Okay, our second item is the Pledge of Allegiance. We will stand and I will lead the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States,
States of America,
to the republic,
which stands
one nation, under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
So item 3, staff introductions. Dan, are you on here?
Yes, I am. Good to see all you in the room. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. We have a few staff people actually missing today, but I'll introduce to you who's participating. We have Dan Wayne, Senior Planner, Sean Tejan, Senior Planner, Jen Paulum, Senior Planner, Amy Lindsay, Administrative Assistant, Michael Cooker, Associate Planner, and we have Jessica Carlson, our Chief Fiscal Officer. And I believe he's not on the panel, but we also have John Kenny listening in and available to us if we need him. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dan. Item 4 is our public comment period. This time is set aside to let citizens who address the board on any agenda item, consent and regular items. By law, we cannot take action on it, but we could schedule an item for a future agenda. So Amy, who do we have queued up for public comments?
Actually, that will be done by my colleague, Michael. And I believe we should have Ed Merrick.
Yes, we do. He should be coming online.
Okay.
Yes. Go ahead, Ed.
Oh, you ready for me? Thanks. I'd like to quickly follow up on a comment I made here 6 months ago, just a general comment on charging infrastructure in Shasta County. And if you recall, at that time, I tried some. Perhaps this will work. Can you see that map? That is the plug share map. You can get see it yourself.
Well, we see it, but not very clearly.
Yeah, I know, but it took so long last time. Anyway, the point is, look it up yourself. There's a huge white gap in eastern Shasta County and points east. There are no public DC stations between here and central Nevada, basically, or in southern Oregon. And I really think that the SRTA should take some responsibility in getting charging stations in Shasta County, particularly since the relatively new factor in the last couple of years is the infrastructure for buses, both transit buses and school buses and individual vehicles has pretty much merged. Now that individual vehicles are charging a 375 kilowatt standard throughout California. So in essence, the same charger standards you're going to need to run your electric buses, and you're mandated to, and the school districts are the same chargers that rural Shasta County residents need to use. It really would be sort of silly to try to duplicate the efforts of different agencies, akin to building a separate road system for buses and cars when they both share the same underlying infrastructure needs. I think an additional cause for urgency I just want to add here in Shasta County is you're probably aware that all major internal combustion engine car companies have either announced they plan to phase out gas and diesel engine production within a few years, or have made the same plans and not announced it. We are getting battery electric cars here in Shasta County soon. And it's really tragic that for people living up here, they really don't have that option to avoid paying $4 or $5 a gallon for gas or diesel. Furthermore, it's become very clear the last 2 years that the PG&E's overhead line system is unstable. Once you have an electric car, you can use the road as your electric grid, and you do not need a power line to your home. That is going to have a dramatic effect on residential life up here. Rather than having extremely expensive and unreliable and it's dangerous PG&E power, we will be able to pick up electricity at the supermarket or dollar store when we make a regular shopping trip, download it directly to our house or our home battery bank. But all that is dependent on having public charging infrastructure distributed throughout the county. Thank you. And if I'm amazed, I do that under 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Ed. I would mention that item 511 does, the California State of Good Repairs does have a brief mention of electric charging stations. Okay, who is next, Michael? We have another public comment.
Yes, we do. Next is Ann Thomas of Shasta Living Streets.
Welcome, Ann. Maybe.
And you're on mute.
Hi, I'm on mute.
There you go.
There we see you.
Rachel Hatch
Welcome.
here as well. We want to both come to say thank you and to give you some good news. I don't know if Rachel could also be added, Michael. But I will start out by saying thank you to the SRTA board. There's Rachel. We have good news about downtown bike share for Reading in Shasta County. And SRTA certainly helped make this possible. They helped with the GHG reduction calculations for the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities project that helped bring this funding, and setting the vision, the policy vision through the Sustainable Community Strategy. So the good news is that downtown bike share is moving forward. We're moving forward right now with the vendor selection process. We have taken a number of years to get here. Shasta Living Streets has been exploring the evolving bike share industry for many years. We brought Karin Haley to town. They run bike share in the Indianapolis Cultural Trail. I think some of your board members were at that meeting. We are part of the North America Bike Share Association now and have had other experienced advisors, including Alta Planning and Design. Rachel and I and Libby Knockman of Alta Planning and Design went through a whole planning process during, I should say, the first COVID year of 2020. We have done a focus group of residents of downtown Reading. We received a financial award of $1 million for bike share this year that closed the gap we had in funding. And we have narrowed down to 9 desired vendors. So maybe I'll turn it over to Rachel, but this is all super good news, and we just wanted to let you know that it's moving forward now.
Thanks, Ann. And to that, I'll just add that we're excited that the business feasibility study and business modeling process has set the course for how this can be an accessible additional form of transit. And I know some of you will likely be at the City Council meeting for Reading City Council coming up November 2nd. City staff have penciled our group in to share a little bit longer of an update at that point. And so just wanted to invite anyone who, geeks out about active transportation and might want to hear a bit more, that's going to be an upcoming chance to do that on November 2nd. And we're always available in case there are questions, for those who can't make it or won't be at that city council meeting. So thanks for the chance just to share a couple updates. It's nice to have good news to share. Thank you.
Do any board members have any questions on the downtown bike share program? I would ask just one. Oh, Kristen, did you have one?
No, all I want to do was just thank Rachel and Ann for taking the time to present the information and give us an update. It's always good to hear good news.
I just have an elementary question, like with a scooter, you have to put a credit card in. How does this work on a bicycle? So that you can track it, do you need to know who used it? Could you explain just briefly?
Yes, it's much the same way. So the bikes will be out on the streets at various station locations, and you can become a sort of a bike share. You can rent for a day, a month, a year. So it works through your phone or credit card or a card key entry like that.
And what is a typical cost for one day?
I think one day typical cost, you could say maybe $8. More of our residents will sign up for a year. So if you sign up for a year, it's something like $125, $150 for a year usage.
For electric bike?
Yes, we hope they will all be electric bikes.
Oh, all electric. Oh, okay.
That's the goal.
Well, that's not that expensive when you go to look at what the price of a bicycle tube is today.
It's usage of bike share is up all around the country as a form of transit to serve people. It's awesome. We're really excited.
I just want to thank Kristen and Mark, because I heard the city of Reading's paying for all this, and that's the story. That's the story that I'm telling everybody. Right,
Yay, more money.
And Anderson definitely agrees. We want to thank you, Kristen.
Well, we also need to acknowledge the Mono Foundation and probably understated how many years it took, which we all know some great ideas take longer than we all anticipate that it might take. And I know there's still a lot of work left to do. And we all are, driving by and watching the growth of the construction of the new building, and we see what's going on downtown. So it's good to start out a meeting like this with positive news about and especially about active transportation, which was more important going forward, and electrification.
So when does this come before the Reading City Council?
Tuesday, November 2nd is an update meeting. And so we'll be sharing about 10 minutes or less of a presentation. And we're working our way through the vendor identification process between now and into Q1 of next year. And then, we are very tuned into some of the supply chain challenges that we're seeing across the board, which could impact the timing of installation of stations and acquisition of the bike fleet. So that becomes a little bit more of a moving target for ultimate finalization. But the city of Reading is a partner, K2 is a partner, and then obviously Shasta Living Streets as the lead operator.
Okay, thank you very much. Oh,
and Mark Rosano, I had such a good time at your downtown, the Diesel Horse. And I know I've already asked this question once, and I know how much work you put into it. So thank you for that. But any plans on the horizon to do it again?
Well, I could say that we're working with City of Reading to think about how to add something like that into their applications for infrastructure funding, so that just like that event, when there is a new exciting piece built in the city, that we have a big party to celebrate it. So that's one form that's a little way out. But let's talk. Yes, we're looking for more money to do that more often.
Thank you.
So Michael, do we have any other additional public comments, people?
It does not appear so.
Okay, we will close the public comment period then, and we'll move on to item 5, which is our consent calendar. And they're all considered routine business and will be acted on by one motion. Do any board members have a question or want to pull any of the items?
Yes, on item 5-5, the fiscal and compliance audits. I just want to say to Dan, I met with Jessica. I had some questions and she answered them. And I'm totally confident in what transpired in that RFP process and getting the bids back. And then the award of the contracts for the audits that are coming up. It was just an education for me. I had no doubts, but I feel much better now having had an hour with her going over the process. So thank her for that. Jessica did an outstanding job.
Great.
Okay, I take that as a compliment and no reason to pull the item then. So we have item 5.1, which is approve the minute from June 28th. And
Chairman Browning will make the motion.
excuse me?
He's making a motion to approve your consent calendar.
Well, just hold off. I was going to read what they were, just real briefly. The 5.2 is a future meeting schedule. Our next meeting will be December 14th at the Shasta County Board of Supervisors. 5.3 is cash disbursement. 5.4 is accept Shasta Regional Transportation Comprehensive Budget Report. 5.5 we just talked about. 5.6 is correspondence information only. 5.7 is I think it's worth mentioning, that is to declare that all the work on the SRTA building has been complete and the project is over. So I'm glad to see that. 5.8 is Shasta Connect Transit Services and update. 5.9 is our overall work program. 5.10 is approve the technical service agreement of $80,000 to eCorp Consulting. 5.11 is approve the California State of Good Repair, which is a Caltrans program, $264,000. And one of them items is an electric bus charging station and the Canby transfer station and Dignity Health security equipment. And item 5.12 was the Active Transportation Partnership Agreement, which was signed with other tribes and partners who would like assistance from SRTA with their grant writing. So now I will accept the motion.
I'll make the motion.
And I'll second it.
Okay, it has been moved by Merrick and seconded by Mary.
Yep. 2 M's.
So Amy,
Roll call vote. Chair Watkins,
yes.
Board Member Schrader,
Yes.
Board Member Mazzano,
Yes.
Board Member Browning,
Yes.
Board Member Modi,
Yes.
Board Member Rickert,
Yes.
Board Member Commenti.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. We move on to item 6, which is Dan Little's Executive Director's Report.
Yes, thank you. I have some very basic housekeeping items. One is the house you're in now, the SRTA house. As you mentioned, Chair Watkins, the substantially complete. We're still doing a few little punch list items, but very proud of the way the building came out. Very glad and relieved to see it done with all that exposure of the building during the winter. And just a shout out to Sean Tejan of our staff and Michael Coker, who did a lot of work with the contractors to help make that happen. All the staff really did, but Sean especially. And then related to that, when we have our meeting in December, we are committed to having that meeting in person. We think the time's right. One of the bigger hangups right now is just merging the SRTA technology that we're using here today with the board chambers, and the board has their own technology, but it's my understanding that we won't be able to use it maybe for technological reasons, I'm not sure. So when we have a committee meeting of the board in November with our fiscal committee meeting, we'll talk about we'll do some more research and talk about ideas about how to make that happen. And also how we reconcile virtual comments and participation with the in-person. And I know a lot of you have already had experience in that. So we'll be looking for ideas there about how to still have a virtual component for those that do not want to attend in person or cannot. And then last, I just wanted to give you some staffing updates. You recall Eamon Johnson, our assistant planner. He was here about a year. He did resign to take a position back in his hometown of San Diego. So that was in August. We're recruiting for a new position now. Hopefully in December, we'll be introducing someone to you for that position. The recruiting environment, like everywhere else, even for transportation planners, has been really tough. There's a lot of vacancies out there. So it's been tough to recruit, but I think we have been lucky so far to get a couple of decent candidates that we're looking at. Also, Kathy Early on our staff, our senior planner, is having some medical issues. She's been out for several months and probably will be for a couple of more. So we miss Kathy, and our best wishes go out to her. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. We'll move on to item 7. Do any board members have a report for attendance of a meeting or reimbursement for an SRTA expense? Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8, which is to approve the 2021 Regional Transportation Improvement Program, RTIP. Dan Little.
Yeah, I think I'll be very brief on this because the staff report's fairly detailed, and I'd be glad to answer any questions. I don't get too deep into the numbers and the weeds, but for those newer members who aren't familiar, every 2 years we get a portion gas tax funds and other funds that go to our transportation improvement program. So the state calculates shares. We take those shares. We propose programming to the California Transportation Commission in the form of this Regional Transportation Improvement Program, or RTIP. And there is a lot of alphabet soup here, sorry. The California Transportation Commission reviews that after I go down and testify and make the best plug we can for our projects. And they include that in their state transportation improvement program. So this is a 5-year program. We update it every 2 years to add 2 years to the program and add funding to the program. In this go around, we're looking at about an extra $6.2 million to the program, and it's available in the last 2 years of the 5-year program. That's a significantly higher amount than in the past. Part of it is because there's COVID relief funds that were added, about $1.8 million. And part of it is because of Senate Bill 1 and the gas tax increases, which really stabilized this program. It was almost relegated to a level of insignificance prior to Senate Bill 1, just because often the fund estimates were higher than what actually came in. And some years we actually had negative balances where we had to deprogram projects. So we're very happy to see some stability in the program. I'm going to highlight just a couple of projects in the bullet points in the staff reports because the other two are status quo. One is a project we've talked about before, which is the Cottonwood active transportation trunk line projects. That was the subject of an active transportation program grant, a very substantial one. It was partially funded with about $7 million, but we have every expectation through program savings and our discussions with the California Transportation Commission that it will receive the full $14 million in funding. And we had pledged, and the board had pledged 10% to the county, which made it competitive to get the money to begin with. So a 10% match would come out to be just under the amount that we're proposing for programming. What we had before, the board had already approved 2 years ago, $494,000 towards this project, just kind of betting on the come that the project would be awarded, and we had some money to do that. And now through the COVID stimulus funds, there's $1.38 million available. And as luck and math would have it, that's just about 10%. It's actually about $100,000 more than our 10% commitment. But we wanted to keep all the money together and program it on one project. So we're more than happy to recommend that programming. And then the other project is the one we've been working on, the Fix 5 Cascade Gateway project, we call it, which is the board had previously committed funds to do the environmental review. This is basically everything north of the central interchange in that 4-lane section up to the existing 6-lane section at Shasta Lake City, or just south of Shasta Lake City. And the project has taken on a decidedly goods movement focus, because that's where the funding is. And quite frankly, that's where the need is too for this project. If not for the truck traffic, if not for the snow closures and fire closures and collision closures, we really wouldn't need to even have this project. And so we are still looking at more innovative ways to address that truck traffic. And I think we've talked about that many times before this board. Programming wise, it's brought up here because with the remaining funds after programming for the Cottonwood project, we have about $4.58 million available, which we're proposing to put towards future construction. And that's providing that we're successful on grants. There's no way we could or should fund the entire project with our limited shares of these regional transportation funds. But just like the project that's under construction now down in Anderson, we will work hard to try to leverage this small amount of money to get other funds to make a complete project. And hopefully in the very near future, there is a grant cycle coming up where we're very active on working on that. So that's our preliminary recommendation. We do this every 2 years, where I don't want to just bring you a proposal with a thumbs up or thumbs down. I want to provide opportunities for comments from the board or anything you think might be going in the wrong direction. So this meeting gives you time to do that. And then in December, we'll have a public hearing, and we'll give you some final numbers and programming amounts that we'll submit to the Transportation Commission. And that concludes my presentation, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, do any board members have any questions or input? I think you were hoping to get some input. Were you here, Dan, or?
Well, or tell me that I did great and everything seems fine. That works.
I'll vote for that.
We'll
Yeah.
applaud.
I do know, like the Fix 5 from north to Oasis Road is really needed. And I think your point that when there's snow closure at Mountain Gate, the trucks back up from Mountain Gate all the way to Anderson.
That's right.
And the freeway becomes unusable there on that section with only 4 lanes. There needs to be a 3rd lane for trucks to line up and not block the entire freeway. So I think that's a good strategy for moving forward, because it's not strictly needed for the traffic. It's also needed for these emergency situations. Anybody else?
I agree with you, Greg.
Okay, so we need an approval on this.
I move approval.
I'll second.
Been moved by Mary and seconded by Leonard. All those, well, we'll do a roll call. Just make sure everybody's still here.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Chair Watkins,
yes,
Board Member Schrader,
Yes,
Board Member Mazzano,
Yes.
Board Member Browning,
Yes.
Board Member Bodie, Board Member Rickert,
Yes.
and Board Member Commenti.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
okay, we're moving on to item, let's see, 9, are we?
Yes.
Approved agreement with member agencies formalizing participation in SRTA and consider member agency representation. This is you again, Dan.
Yeah, thank you. This is something that we've been talking about at the board level and staff level for a couple of years now. And you recall it started with the notion of perhaps using this board as what's called a council of governments, where which is the form that most agencies do in California and across the nation, where you could, if you so elected, to take on more than we do now. And there's opportunities there. There's scales of economy where some board members thought that had merit, and it was certainly worth looking at, and maybe it still is. Another thing driving that is there was special funding available last year that was only available to these council of governments. So the forming one, and I think it still might make sense one day. But what you have before you here is removed or tabled that council of government item. It is on the alternatives if the board felt strongly that we should still pursue that. But for the time being, we've watered this down, if you will, to a very basic agreement that just has the agencies formally recognize this board, the SRTA board, as the regional transportation agency for the region, which seems kind of silly because we've been doing it for years, but we don't have a formal agreement that backs that up. And this is just a cooperative agreement. It's, when you look at it, it's not really binding. It just explains what it is we do. And member agencies all agree that it's a good idea for us to do that, is probably the best way to put it. In that, we have worked with the cities and the county staff at the CAO and city manager level to hammer out the wording in the agreement. I think we're in a place now where it's substantially there. There are we're just down to some citation corrections or clarifications of government code and things like that. The only real remaining issue is just indemnification clauses that have been suggested by one of the member agencies. I've talked to our legal counsel, John Kenny, about that. I'm not sure, if there is indemnification. I'm not sure it even needs to be there because it is just a cooperative agreement that doesn't really bind anybody to do anything. But I think it needs some further discussion if we want to have these indemnification clauses in there or not. And I'm talking about your standard indemnification clauses you usually see in agreements where money changes hands and things like that. So you'll notice in the staff recommendation, there is some latitude for me to make these kind of minor changes in final form. If it was anything of substance, I would bring it back to the board. But we do want to work through that latest comment that we got that actually came after the writing of this staff report. So, and the other reason I'm asking for some discretion to make changes is I don't want to create a constant loop where if the cities or county have a small change after it goes to their councils for review, we don't have to do a circle and go back to this board and back to the cities and so forth. So it's just a way to get it done. So we are recommending that agreement that you have attached with some minor changes. We'll be making any future changes that might come up. And then the last issue that kind of goes hand in hand with this, but we can take some time until the December meeting, is really who's the signatory to this agreement. We have a RABA representative right now on the SRTA board. It's been that way since, I believe, the early 80s. The record's unclear on why we did that, but I suspect it was when the city of Shasta Lake incorporated, we had an even number of board members, and this was a way to get to 7 members, have that odd number without committing a specific entity or one jurisdiction, like one city having 2 members. That's a bit of an educated guess, really. It's all nobody seems to really know why. It is unusual in the state to have a transit agency representative. Usually it's a pure form of cities, counties on these types of agencies like ours or on council of government. So I laid out a few bullets and reasons in the staff report of why I think it's a good housekeeping idea to take that RABA representative and make it into a Reading representative, because that's RABA's policy anyway. That's the way that position functions, is that when RABA makes an appointment to this board, it's an unwritten policy that needs to be a Reading council member. And I think it makes perfect sense to have a second Reading council member with, Reading's influence, significance to the region. It's very common to have weighted representation on boards by the size of the jurisdictions. So if that position looks and acts like a RABA representative, my suggestion is to make it a RABA representative. There are some other benefits to it, as you can see in discussions with Reading over the last month plus. We brainstormed, we can't really think of any good reasons to have the RABA representative or unintended consequences or implications if we make this change to a Reading representative. But yet RABA staff is still a little bit reluctant to do that. And they want more time to look at it further on the staff level, which we're giving by delaying this decision to December. But certainly it's a decision of this board. I mean, if anything falls within your purview, it's the very makeup of the board that you're sitting on. And so I think any initial thoughts you have or guidance short of making a firm decision today would be welcome input and might help guide and move this along at the staff level for the December meeting when we would propose a final decision. That concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Dan. Leonard Modi.
Thank you, Greg. Dan, I just want to make sure that there's two parts to this. Is one of the requests is action by this board to sort of approve our half of this, but then it has to go to the RABA board to approve it in December. Is that what's happening? Because you've got, yeah, I'm a little confused by that because you've got here to approve this and sign, then you also said something about going to the RABA board and them approving something in December.
Yeah, sorry about that. So really set now is it doesn't have the RABA director or the RABA chairman, there's no signature for it on the agreement. So it assumes we're going to follow the staff recommendation and not have a RABA representative. So you see a three-part recommendation in the report. The first two recommendations strictly have to do with the agreement and adoption of the agreement. And the third option about RABA representation is just an a la carte issue, if you will, something we should hide. It doesn't have a RABA board if we no longer have a RABA representative, but if we do, it should go to the RABA board, just like it should go to all the city councils and the board of supervisors for signature and adoption.
Okay, so the comments I would have is I've always sort of struggled with the fact that we have jurisdiction over RABA and kind of how they do things, yet we've got sort of a subset of that on our board. It seems to me that seems an odd way to structure things. It'd be like the county having a city rep on our board for county business, and it doesn't make sense to me. I know that, you mentioned the unwritten policy, but I know back even to the 90s, even that was always the thing about RABA, was that position would be a Reading position to add that second person on the board, and everybody appeared to be okay with that even back then. And I really support that. I think it's a great move. I think it clears up our oversight and clearly makes it official jurisdictions like cities and the county versus having some sub agencies, because if we start doing that, there's a possibility of other agencies then coming forward and also want to be members of our board, and then who knows where that stops. So I'm very supportive of the agreement and also of changing their RABA rep to a Reading rep.
Kristen.
Hi, since I will offer that because we have some requests by the RABA director, Chuck Auckland, and also Barry Tippin, to provide some more clarification. Sorry, it didn't happen already, but more clarification on the pros and cons of having RABA still have a seat on this board rather than making it two city representatives. So I'd like to defer the final decision on this until December. And it also, I think it's not as critical, but there's also the language about indemnification that Dan, you have some language that needs to be changed into the agreement that I think is enough to wouldn't be prepared to agree to approve the agreement at this meeting. I understand Leonard, what you were talking about. I want to hear more from Chuck and from Barry on some reasoning that they believe that it should be separate, that the RABA board member would stay as a RABA board member. I mean, a representative from RABA would stay separate onto this board. I just want to hear them out a little more. Apologize that it didn't happen before today. But I think there isn't something urgent that requires us to make the decision today in my mind. And I would request that we defer this decision until approval until December.
And that is the way it's being presented, is that this is simply staff direction and the decision would be made in the December meeting, Kristen. But
Okay,
Mark, you have,
Because I maybe I misunderstood what Leonard, what you were saying. I thought you were saying go ahead and go forward with this agreement and approve it. But I guess you were saying go ahead and go forward with it and approve it in December. And I'm saying something slightly different. I don't know what I want to approve, recommend to approve. I'm waiting to hear what our RABA staff have to say before we approve it in December.
Leonard?
Yeah, and Kristen, I'm okay with that. I'm not saying, I'm okay with waiting and letting, some final discussion happen in the next month and a half. I'm just sort of indicating where I'm at on this thing. And I do think, I just think pretty strongly that we should just make this thing be a duck, because it's acting like a duck, and we're kind of doing this hybrid model. And I do worry that it opens this up for, I've seen it happen actually in some other boards I sit on, where other agencies on a couple of water boards start coming in from wanting their piece of the pie, and they really don't have a stake in the game, but they want to have a say, and it makes it very confusing. And also, I mean, there always is the possibility, if RABA board members said, wait a minute, why should Reading always get to be the person? It should be, give our city a chance to have an extra person once in a while. And I think to Dan's point, it's well taken. Reading has a large stake in this thing. You're the big dog in the fight with most of the, obviously with RABA, and I really support that. So, but I'm more than okay, Kristen, to work out some more of the details and bring it forward. It's certainly not, as you mentioned, it's not a desperate decision time at this point, so.
Okay, Mark?
In reviewing this, and because I'm the new kid on the block here, and I'm learning every day, I ask staff at Reading to take a look at this and bring me back more information so that I could, in fact, support a move like this. And at this stage, I couldn't, but putting it off until the December meeting, giving them a little bit of time to bring back some information to help me make that decision, I think is prudent, and that would be my position.
Okay, thank you, Mark. The way I see this is RABA, if we said anybody from the RABA board could be the representative, City of Shasta Lake or Anderson could have two representatives on this board. And I don't think that's right. I think it should be weighted to Reading. Reading is much bigger, and to assign two permanent members from Reading makes sense. And that's really the way it's been. It's always been the RABA board will appoint one, but it will be a council member from the city of Reading. So I think all we're doing is kind of formalizing this, that what Leonard's saying, we ought to admit that and just say we're giving two reps to Reading, and that pretty much covers RABA's influence, because RABA runs primarily in Reading and to a lesser degree in Anderson and Shasta Lake. So I see this as just staff direction that you should proceed with this proposed change, but we will vote on the final decision at our next meeting.
If I could just add on, Greg, you mentioned about whether there are two cities. I mean, and quite frankly, even the county could get another rep, because we've got a rep
you're right.
on the board too. So you could end up having four people.
Oh, yeah. Boy, we're not going to give the county another.
And we shouldn't. But, who knows? Strange things can happen. And the other thing, and again, I'm okay with waiting and having more information and stuff. I also think it's always incumbent on all the members of this board to have RABA in mind as part of their duties and the jurisdictions that they serve, because we all have a piece of it. So it's not just the case I'm representing Shasta County for the transportation part. I'm also representing Shasta County in the interest of RABA as well. So since we have the kind of the final say over what they do. So anyway, that's all.
And
Okay.
Greg,
Mark?
I would agree with that, but even your comments, Dan, about not knowing why we did this, how many years ago, just makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up. So I would look for you to come forward in the next couple of weeks before the December meeting and shed some light on that.
I can make, are you talking about why the rep from RABA is Reading?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I was there. I mean, not on the board per se, but obviously the longest serving person with the Reading and stuff. And that was exactly the point is when the board, keep in mind, originally, this was all under the county. And it's only become an independent agency in what, last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years?
10 years.
6, 7, whatever it's been
Time goes
now.
by faster than you think, Leonard.
So it was all under the county, under a county department, actually. But it was always told to me when I served in different parts of administration at the city that, yeah, it was to give Reading another vote to even the playing field a little bit because of them being the largest player.
Okay, and I would defer to Dan and certainly our city manager, Barry Tippin, on the benefits of having 2 members from the city of Reading versus 1 and 1. They have to tell me what the best and the worst of that situation is.
This also gives RABA a month and a half to come up and tell us why they should have their own rep.
Okay.
So they all have a chance to make their presentation. So I think you have direction on that, and we need a motion on the other 2.
Well, I'm not sure did I hear that you guys wanted to wait on that part too?
I think that's the general consensus.
Yeah, I did
The table until December meeting.
December meeting.
I thought that was just item 3 on it. Dan, where are we on that?
I believe that Board Member Schrader suggested that we also continue recommendation 1 and 2, the agreement itself. I have no problem with that. We can further work out that indemnification issue, bring it all back to you at once again.
Okay, then we'll leave this unacted upon.
So, excuse me, Greg, do we need to vote to postpone? Do we need a vote?
Yes, we
Remember-
do.
Okay.
Do we, nobody's made a motion to approve it, so I don't see why we need a vote.
Are you asking Brian just to table it to the next meeting?
Yeah.
Oh, we're tabling it.
Yeah, we're tabling it till December.
Okay,
Don't you still need that motion though? No offense. but-
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I would suggest a motion just to make the record clear that we're continuing this and what those votes are to do that.
Okay,
Aaron, you want to make that?
Yeah, I'll make that motion that we table it till December.
I will second.
okay. It was moved by Henderson and seconded by Mark. So, Amy?
okay. Chair Watkins,
Yes.
Board Member Schrader,
Yes?
Board Member Mazzano,
Yes.
Board Member Browning,
Yes.
Board Member Modi,
Yes.
Board Member Rickert,
Yes.
and Board Member Commenti.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, we're moving on to item 10. And this is Jennifer Pollum to give us an update on the Salmon Runner Intercity Bus Project. And go ahead here with that.
All right, thank you very much. I've already greeted you all. Welcome everybody else that's on the Zoom call. Again, I'm Jennifer Pollum, Senior Transportation Planner with the Shasta Regional Transportation Agency, and I'm here to provide an update on the Salmon Runner Intercity Bus Service. The project hit a major setback in June. We had been awarded $600,000 in intercity bus programming funds from the Caltrans Division of Rail and Mass Transportation. And in June, they determined to rescind that based on the fact that they erroneously awarded the funding. We had applied for funding to begin operations this fall now. And the funding from the 2020 award cycle, they would have wanted to be completed by June of 2021. So that is why they've said they erroneously awarded it. Subsequent to that, in their 2021 program, they only wanted to fund existing projects, as in projects that are in service and operating on buses on the ground. And so we became ineligible, our bus service became ineligible for that funding because we were not in service. So in total, if we would have been awarded the similar funds as we were in the 2020 cycle, we were out $1.2 million from that erroneous and revoking of the funds. We are working with, as you can see in table 1, thanks, Michael. As you can see in table 1 there, that was our committed funding that we presented to you in, I believe in June. And you see that we are no longer receiving the major funding source line item of $600,000. And really the second item down, that 470 originally was, it's written in a letter committed to us for a 2-year pilot program. So if you think about it, think of it more as 235,000 per year. So we don't have the funds to run the 2 round trips daily between Reading and Sacramento. We had started the developing and talking to operators, and we stopped that process as soon as we heard that the funds were being revoked, and started the process of again talking to Caltrans Division of Rail and Mass Transportation about options and where we could find funding for this project. I did over the past month or so, I've been talking with different in different parts of that Caltrans Division of Rail and Mass Transportation about funding opportunities. They said that they were happy to stay committed to the project. They're trying to identify funding sources for us. They are going through what is called in the staff report, I believe I call it the statewide intercity bus study. They are calling it at the state level, the California Intercity Bus Study, CIBS. And that should be completed in about 1 year. And this project should be highlighted in that. And hopefully an ongoing funding source will be identified. With that, I'm going to continue working with that organization and look for other funding opportunities. And I'm moving forward on the capital purchase of the buses and the fueling infrastructure. That's a separate item, but you need capital and operations to run the bus service. So we have the TIRCP, Transit and Intercity Rail Capital Funding of $8.6 million. And we are working with the different partners, the California State Transportation Agency, Caltrans, and the Air Resources Board, I believe, on moving that project into the development of a prototype hydrogen fuel cell. A lot of this is coming, if the budget had passed differently at the October 10th, there might have been additional funding, but the legislature is holding back on what they're spending some of that surplus funding on. So looking to see how they move forward with that.
So,
okay, Leonard.
So Jennifer, if as this thing moves forward and you see opportunities at the state level to need a word inserted somewhere, please let me know, because through my CSAC, all my contacts, we've got, the eyes and ears of a lot of different legislators and state staff. Sometimes that you just put the right words, sometimes you can just at least make them more aware of it and stuff. And with
can you CSAC?
California State Association of Counties.
Okay.
It's like the League of Cities for counties, but we're 58 counties that deal directly with the governor's office and you're talking LA County, whatever, we get those kind of people on our sides and we can get a lot of sway. So sometimes, what's one of the things that I constantly try to do for the North State is remind people that Sacramento doesn't stop. The state doesn't stop at Sacramento and remember us up here, but now I'm in a position where, their executive committee where I have that ability to add a little oomph to the North State. So
excellent, thank you.
Anybody else have comments or? Art?
So I need you to dumb this down a little bit for me. We don't have service now.
Yep.
And we were gonna have service if we got the money, but we didn't get the money, so now we don't have the service. But we're gonna go ahead with the capital improvements in hopes of getting the money to get the service. And your thoughts on getting that money? How much are we gonna outlay for the capital expenditures?
We've got 8.6 million committed to that.
And that's through grant funds, obviously.
Yes,
And whatnot. And so we will encumber those funds without a service, but that makes the likelihood of getting the service better?
Yes, they're committed to the project.
Okay,
We, when we, yep, they're committed to the project. If my thought, I think I'm like, why would I buy a bus if I don't have service to put the bus on? But our idea is there's Amtrak throughway buses that are run by state, entities within the state of California. They're run by the San Joaquin's Joint Power Authority. I mean, if we had a bus and ultimately the salmon runner can't run, the bus could end up, we would transfer possibly the bus to them to serve our region. Because we do want it to still, we put forward the effort, we're trying to improve transportation for our
people.
community, correct? And so we want to still have it serve our region. I mean, in reality, maybe we could give it to Trinity Transit and they could run bus service across 299 because they do that. So there's opportunities there.
great, thank you.
Well, I know people that were really looking forward to this, so it's gonna be very disappointing to them.
Anybody else?
We do have a request for public comment.
Okay, is that Ed Merrick?
Yes, sir.
Okay, put him on.
Go ahead, Ed. Be sure to unmute yourself.
First off, I think I requested, was it Amy who had the website on available buses?
Yes.
Yeah, here we go. Just to follow up, you remember as of 6 months ago, I asked you to continue and reopen the subject of using electric buses. There's some question of coach style buses being available. And the one example I gave you, you were unable to play the video. Well, anyway, this is the HVIP program. There are 8 buses here, all suitable for your purposes. So that was the original, it appeared to me, objection to canceling electric buses several years ago. They were not available. They are available now. Following up, the other problem of having the incorrect infrastructure for an electric bus line, specifically not having interim stations in Orland and Williams for partial charging during the route. I just want to point out, just in the last 6 months, the infrastructure costs of putting these stations in have dropped dramatically due to the commercial development of battery integrated fast chargers. A great deal of the cost of putting in fast chargers formerly was putting in the large voltage and amperage, large wires, large transformers, big jobs to deliver 300 kilowatts. Well, that's no longer necessary. Batteries have reached the low cost level that you simply trickle charge the batteries. When I say trickle, at a considerable, 50 kilowatt rate or something. But if you charge them at 50 kilowatt rate for an hour, you can discharge them at 300 kilowatts for 10 or 12 minutes. Works perfectly with your application, as does charging them on site with a solar array, which already was in the capital cost. So to summarize, you have capital costs. You're overcapitalized for an electric bus route, in my opinion. The additional problem that caused you to cancel the diesel buses, the deficit in operating costs, I think you'll find when you re-examine electric buses, does not exist for electric buses. They've
Did we lose you?
Or froze up.
Yeah, it would appear so.
So Jennifer, I guess I would ask you, you have considered the points that he is presenting to us.
Yeah, these buses, they are excellent. We've had demoed them up here. I want to say that these vehicles are on day one. This is the range that you can find. They talk about 165-mile range. That's on day one. Those batteries that are on the bus are not warranted to 100% the full time. They go down 80% of their capacity or 70%. I believe.
I'm quite aware of that. I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Jennifer Pollum.
Jennifer, I'm quite aware of that, Jennifer.
So
But
we're looking for.
The point
We're looking
is,
for a bus that can make it the full way without having to stop and charge.
the point is that's not the way to run an electric bus line. It is very inefficient to do full charges. It's hard on the battery, it's expensive and inefficient. Interim charging is far superior. You don't need, you do want about a 300 or 400 kilowatt battery bus for this to make up for battery capacity loss over time. But you don't need that capacity when you leave the station because you know you're stopping in 40 minutes at another fast charger. The other advantage of distributing charging, and it's major, is you have redundancy. If you ever have a problem with the charger, you have another one 40 miles away to make up the schedule. I'm just saying that you did put an application in for those that additional application for interim chargers. I hope we're not going to debate the value of interim chargers now. So anyway, as I was saying, now the point is you do want about the whole battery with about the whole range capacity, but those buses I showed you had from 300 to 500 and something battery capacity. You only need about 300 to do this.
What's charging time, even with the fast charge? When you
No, it's
a
not
slow
a fast
charge.
charger. Again, there's a charger right now in Williams that charged at 350 kilowatts an hour, which is faster than any of these buses can accept a charge.
Yeah, but my question it is, how long do they have to stop there to get some kind of charge, at least to get to the next place?
Yeah.
Well, a 300 kilowatt charge cycle. Thank you for asking that question. You would leave, say you leave Reading. Okay, if you're charging overnight, the first trip of the day, it's no problem to have 100% charge. But normally you leave Reading with an 80% charge. At a 300 kilowatt charge rate, in 12 minutes, that's a fifth of an hour, you get 60 kilowatts at Orland, 60 kilowatts at Williams.
Yeah, so how long is
Sacramento with 20% reserve. And then there it requires the deficit of 24.
So
you have to charge, excuse me, I'll just finish. You have to charge for 36 minutes to bring it back up to 80%. 36-minute turnaround time. Okay, what this means is you can have the whole travel time under 3 hours and the whole recharge time plus other accessories. You've got to clean the bus, etc., all under 1 hour. You can run 16 trips a day using the buses, the 4 buses that you have ordered and have funded, fully funded.
How long does it take to do that 60 kilowatt charge though?
That's
15 minutes. Oh, the 50 is 4
Like I
hours.
said, at 300 kilowatts, 12 minutes.
12 minutes.
Yeah.
So if we stop in Orland, you're gonna say I'm gonna sit there for 12 minutes.
Well, you don't just sit, actually, sir, you only have to take passengers on and off the bus, including their luggage, aren't you?
Right,
I'll plan
okay.
with, and you're gonna have to wait until the next departure time. I think the minimum you have planned for those stops is 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And in a 5-minute stop, I can guarantee you, you're going to have a much worse on-time schedule than if you book 12 minutes. And then when you get there and you only have 6 or 7 minutes, you can leave early and make up the time at the next stop.
Well, I don't think you can ever leave early. If you've got a departure time.
I misspoke. You're correct. You never leave early, but you can have, if you're 5 minutes late with a 12-minute stop, you have a 7-minute stop and then move on.
Okay.
Okay, I think that Jennifer has heard your input and we will look into that. I noticed that we have the the history of this agenda item going back to April 2015. So we have been considering the salmon runner for 6 years. And first we were going to do all batteries, then we were going to do hydrogen fuel cells. And we talked about having a very small, highly efficient diesel generator built into the bus that would give a trickle charge the whole time, but the state won't permit that. So part of our problem is our hands are tied to come up with an efficient system that will work today. The technology is not totally there. And I don't think you can have a Salmon Runner Express that's going to have to stop 3 times for a parcel charge. Even though I understand the technology is you can drive underneath it, charge in an electro something. You don't actually have to put a cord to plug it. That saves a lot of time. So that's moving in the right direction. And maybe you can run 300 kW through a non-physical connection, but I don't know that that's true.
Well, I think part of their problem wasn't with the batteries themselves, that
they can't take it that fast.
Well, and they have a certain efficiency when they're new, and each year you're using that efficiency or that rechargeability starts dropping.
Right.
And pretty soon we're down below.
They're warranted to 70 or 80%. It depends on the company.
Yeah.
So some are warranting their batteries to 70% and some are warranting them to 80%.
Just to start out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So an 80% warrant won't get it from here to Sacramento, but it would get it from here to Orland and Williams. But then if you have an express and it has to take 15 minutes, if the state would just let us have some flexibility of a hybrid bus, we could do it today, but that's not permitted the way I understand it.
Correct.
Sir, if I interject, I just say that this is exactly why the difference between the technology when you rejected the program 2 years ago is vast and today. Buses have much larger batteries at much smaller cost. Charging is much faster at much lower cost.
I'll give them that.
I'm just saying that I really think, again, you have been working on this 5 years. When you initially made the proposal, it probably was impractical. It's not today. That's the point I'm making. You have the funding today. And I think you should analyze the situation, but whether the funding you have now is adequate.
Chair Watkins?
Yes, Kristen.
Well, I appreciate that our staff, Jennifer Palm, has brought this back to us for an update because of the change in the funding status for operation. And I appreciate any input that our community has made along the process. I would ask if staff could share with me, when did you receive this information that was posted and screen shared right now? When did that information become available?
Amy received an email today.
So today. So I would highly recommend that if a community member is interested in providing such highly technical information and then make statements as to what we should and shouldn't do in a 3-minute conversation when they only provided the information today, that's not a reasonable method for us to consider the information and make any decisions on that. A more substantive preparation and request with a reasonable timeline for receiving the information and making any appropriate responses is how this board should have a deliberative process about deciding what we should do for the salmon runner. I want to appreciate the work that our staff has done and our board members have, and Mr. Watkins and I attended the last demonstration of buses out there, and there's been a lot of work. And if anybody any members of the community would like to make a presentation, give us more time, more detailed information, and prior to making any 3-minute conversation about such a technical decision that needs to be made.
Thank you very much, Chris. And I think that is a good summary. We will close the public comment here. And I would just add that this, there are other possibilities. We could have a diesel powered one that would help replace the San Joaquin's JPA bus that is running. It would start developing the ridership and there are other ways we can go forward, but they are not permitted as part of this grant. So Jen, I think you're doing a great job in overseeing this and running it. I know you've been the best advocate that is around for it. And I encourage you to continue to see what we can do to get this moving forward because everybody supports the concept.
Great, thank you.
And the devil's in the details. Okay, thank you very much. We will move forward to item 11, which is to receive an update on the 2022 Regional Transportation Plan and approve the 2021 Ways and Means Report. But before I turn it over to Dan Wayne, I just want to give him an attaboy here for preparing this package. I always like pictures when you have a package to look at, but he also he ghost wrote a SRT board chair message. And I really think he captured the points very well right here. I know you can't see this on the screen, but I want to read 3 sentences out of this on page 2, the SRT board chair. Says, no matter where you're heading or how you choose to get there, chances are you benefited from SRTA's investments, programs, and services. Each year, SRTA administers over $24 million in state, federal funds for the planning, construction, and operation and maintenance of the regional transportation network. And then skipping down, this report is one of many efforts by SRTA to consult and collaborate with our community on how the funds are presented. So this is the report, and I turn it over to you, Dan Wayne, to summarize what is in the report.
Great. Thank you, Chair Watkins and board members. I'm not going to go into all the specific content of the report, but what I do want to emphasize and highlight is the strategic value or function of the report in the planning and decision-making process. As you know, the Regional Transportation Plan, or the RTP, serves as the overarching transportation policy framework for the region. It covers a 20-year planning horizon, and it's updated every 4 years. Now, new to the 2018 RTP, which is our current RTP, were short-term goals, things that we hope to accomplish or make substantial progress towards during the 4-year RTP planning cycle, in this case, 2018 through 2022. So it's been 3 years since we adopted that RTP, and then looking forward, it's about a year until we need to update and adopt a new RTP. So it's a good time right now to take a little look back and assess our progress that we've made towards our short range goals, note any areas that we've fallen short, and to preview what could be our new short range goals for the next RTP cycle, being 2022 through 2026. So the Ways and Means report, that's the purpose, is to present that information and to make it accessible and engaging for the board, for our partner agencies, and for the general community. You may recall this is not the first Ways and Means. The first one was produced a few years ago, and I would say that it wasn't fully realized at this point. It was a document that provided a snapshot of all of our recent accomplishments.
Dan, there's a picture of the train going across the Diesel Horse Bridge, and I just wondered how you got a picture of it in daylight. It seems like it comes through here.
It's late a lot, trust me.
Photoshop.
No, it's late a lot.
Yeah, it was late enough that it came through in daylight.
In daylight.
I wish it was me that took that picture, but that's actually one of the pictures that I found online, and we got permission from the photographer to include that in our report at no cost. So appreciation to John for that.
John.
Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. He was very amenable to sharing his photographs with the report.
That's a good picture too.
Well, could he have taken a better picture of Greg then?
I told him not to use the current one. He took one from a couple of years ago. So thank you for that too.
If you'd like, I can use the one with the view in the hat at the board meeting.
I got two board members here. I don't know if I made any points.
Yeah, I would say no, but go ahead.
You're gonna have to redeem yourself there, Greg.
Sorry, I had to.
I'm just glad you did such a good job of, capturing his thoughts and words and got what you liked, right?
Right.
Good job.
No, Dan did a great job. He sent it to me and I said, there's only 2 words in there. I'd like you to modify, and the rest of it is exactly the way he ghost drafted.
That's pretty awesome.
Good. All right. Well, so as I was mentioning, so this wasn't fully realized because we didn't have short-term goals yet. So really, this was a lot of patting ourselves on the back for recent accomplishments. So now the ways and means, I would say, is its purpose, its function is fully realized. And this is the format that we anticipate that it will continue in every 4 years at this time. And we have a chance to look back and then we're planning for the next RTP cycle. So with that said, we hope that the board members and our partners and the general public, like I said, we hope that they find it engaging and that it spurs discussion about what the best and highest use of regional resources are in our region, and hopefully just makes the planning process just a little bit more accessible. So with that, I'll answer any questions that the board members or the public have. Once it is, assuming that it is approved, then what we'll do is we'll post it online. We'll do a small print run, and then we'll make it available. We'll distribute it to our partners and to key community stakeholders.
Well, thank you, Dan. So this is an update on where we are, and then we are going to finalize this at our next meeting.
Actually, we're looking for approval of the report right now. If you approve it, then we'll go ahead and finalize it and get that printed and distributed. If for any reason you have any changes to it, you can provide those edits now. If you need to, for any reason, to defer your approval, we can make that work as well.
Okay, do any board members have any input on what he's already compiled?
Like not. So then I'll make a motion to approve the Ways and Means report so we can get final.
I'll second it.
Okay, it has been moved by Modi and seconded by Rickard. So may we have a roll call approval there, Amy?
Yes, sir. Chair Watkins,
Yes.
Board Member Schrader,
Yes.
Board Member Mazzano,
Yes.
Board Member Browning,
Yes.
Board Member Modi,
Yes.
Board Member Rickard,
Yes.
Board Member Pimenti.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, Dan Wayne?
I apologize for doing this after the fact, but I just wanted to add one thing just to clarify. This is not a policy document, so it includes a lot of policies and intended actions, but you're not really approving anything until the regional transportation plan is approved. This is just a public outreach document, and it gets the discussion rolling. So if there were anything in this that now or at any time in the near future that you have any exception to,
You would like any input that the board
that can be made, and that will be incorporated in the official policy of the agency, which is the RTP. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. So item 12, do any board members have any suggestions for future topics for our meetings? Harry.
Yes, I really do think, great point was made earlier today, that we do need to do some research on electric charging stations in eastern Shasta County. I notice I travel 299 frequently, and there's more and more Teslas going up and down the road. And I think there's a real need there. I think that we need to do some.
Yeah, didn't we have a report of somebody who was stranded in?
I gave you a story. Well,
Yes.
no, he was Fall River. He came
Fall
by
River, right.
our church, and I came out of mass, and there he was, and had 10 miles left on his car. We took him over and took him up to our welder. It's a long story. But the point is, it really is there's a need, because we have so many people that come 89 through like Lawson Park or from Susanville, and they go to Bernie Falls, and then they keep going on, to Mount Shasta. And there's a big stretch in there that there's a real limitation in terms of what people can do with, and there's more and more of those cars on the road. I see.
You know, the Tesla charger is proprietary.
Yes, I do know. I've got
And my-
2 kids with two of my kids have Teslas.
Right, and my daughter has one, and
Yeah.
so they have that in their garage, but when you go to Anderson Split Pea Soup,
Yes,
if you have a Tesla, you have to use a Tesla charger.
yeah.
If you have another plug-in vehicle, you
You
could
could
use that.
Well, but could there be 2 different plugs at the same place?
I don't
I don't know
think so.
about it.
The question I have is who's responsible for this? I mean, if you talk about putting a charging station in,
That should be the
is someone paying the capital expense of putting that in, and maybe you're asking us to do that. The other thing is, who's paying for the power that they're getting?
Well, the Tesla charges you for the power when you
Yeah.
plug in. Okay, it's just like buying gas.
Okay.
It's like a
The city is putting in generic chargers at Turtle Bay.
And then does the city then pay to maintain those on?
I understand. That's
It
not-
ought to cover maintenance, operation, fuel, electricity costs and maintenance. But I noticed back in item 511, we talked about California State a Good Repair Program, and there are electric chargings there for buses. So maybe something like that could be expanded to include some of this and work out the details, because, I mean, Tesla is trying to sell their cars. If they don't have charging stations, they're not going to sell the cars. So is it our responsibility to help sell Teslas?
Or the Tesla, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm just trying to figure out, if you're gonna put one in Bernie, do you go to the Safeway store and say, hey, will you accept this on your property? And they say, yeah, I want rent or whatever. I don't know. I don't know how
I
that
think the
works.
restaurant there, the one restaurant that had the charging station would probably be fighting over who gets
Yeah,
it.
who gets it? I thought it was was it Pitt River Casino? I don't know. I never go to the casinos. I
No,
don't.
my point is, I think I need, if we're gonna, and I have no problem putting.
Yeah.
I just need more education on.
That's my point, is I think we just need to have, if there's some way of researching what options there are for people. Because like I say, 89, there's a lot of cars that go back and forth on 89, and they come up through 44 sometimes. The last.
Surprised Bernie State Park doesn't have a charger
Yeah,
sitting in the
that's-
parking lot.
That's what I'm
Are you the
saying.
answer man?
Good afternoon. So this is Sean over at SRTA. So
Have a seat so they can see you.
yeah, so no, this is a good topic, and I can talk about Dan about this, but we've been tracking a lot of stuff related to electric vehicle charging, what's possible, what's not. There's several different models that can be out there. And probably the best thing would be to add this to a topic discussion, and we can present some basic information.
That's what we're asking for.
And so that's something I can work with Dan on here. We can present some information, what's available, what's not, the challenges that we have, and address some of these topics. So I just want to come by and let you know, there are a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of funding opportunities that may be available.
Okay, Sean, we hope to see you in December.
Sounds good.
I'm looking.
If I could just make a suggestion,
Yeah.
maybe we partner with some of our businesses along those routes, because they're the ones that are going to get those, they will get more out of it than we would. And so a public-private partnership would be wonderful in those cases.
Good point, Aaron.
Agreed.
Any other future topic?
Like I say, we need to address it.
Hearing none, I just mentioned one other little minor thing. Next Saturday, November 6th is going to be a Veterans Day parade in Shasta Dam, on Shasta Dam Boulevard. So we encourage people to come see a Veterans Parade. It was canceled last year, and this is, hopefully it'll be a good event. So to move forward with parade. Hearing nothing else,
Wait, I'd just like to add, an appreciation to SRTA staff for allowing the continued virtual attendance by some of us. It really worked out for me today because of other meetings that were already also virtually held. And I want to thank SRTA staff for figuring out all the technology that I'm seeing here where we could actually see everybody, use Zoom in and out. And it's very much appreciated, and appreciate the flexibility and accommodating and use of technology. Thank you.
very good point, Kristen. This was probably the best Zoom, half Zoom meeting we've had. So saying that, we are adjourned.
It's really efficient.
Dan, nice job on that.
Last time, I can't find it. What's the
Jennifer,
number I call?
good luck.
The one that orders from me.
Oh.